Good afternoon. We're slowly letting you in. And please, if you're ready, just share your screen through a window, your camera. Good afternoon. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Hi.
We're slowly letting people in. And yes, please use the chat. That's great. Okay, it's 12:30. I'll give it 30 more seconds. Great of you to join today. We'll wait for the last people to come in. And then we'll kick off. Thank you for sharing your role in the chat. And that's okay, Naomi, to leave a bit early. And yes, we can always catch up later on. So people, let's kick off on the New South Wales Small Business Month. Today, we're going to talk about sustainability and climate reporting in 2025 and focus on how to future-proof your business. But first, let me start with an acknowledgement of country. I would like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the various lands on which we meet and pay my respects to their elders past, present and future. And I'll be joining you today from the Bundjalung country in the Northern Rivers in New Italy, to be very exact. Great for you to join, and we are proud to be hosting this webinar as part of the 2024 Small Business Month program in partnership with the New South Wales government. Some housekeeping notes. We will email you the presentation afterwards. We are very keen to see you in the chat, so please pop in your questions and use that to communicate with us. Please mute your mic during the webinar, but feel free to pop in a question, and we can always unmute you when you want to come in. And feel free to share anything about today's webinar on LinkedIn or Instagram using the hashtag NSW Small Biz Month. And of course, please tag Southern Cross University and SEG Align, if you please. Well, today I'm here with you to talk about sustainability. And why sustainability? Well, it's not just about eco-friendly, it's really about future-proofing your business, staying competitive and meeting rising customer demands for responsible companies. Sustainability is so much more. It's about managing change and innovation. It's about discovering new business models and applying the principles of a circular economy to your business. So it applies to every business, whether you run a small shop, a manufacturing business, a professional service business, or you're driving a startup, it doesn't matter. Integrating sustainable practices can really drive your long-term growth. It can help you reduce cost and, very important, help you boost your employee engagement and retain talent, which in the Northern Rivers is a very high demand. Today, we're going to dive deeper in what's on the horizon, how to future-proof your business, and I'm very glad to have with me today Professor Andrew Rose from the Southern Cross University. He's the academic director of the ReCirculator project, and Dr. Ernest Dutoit, also from the Southern Cross University ReCirculator project, and he's the technical manager. Today, we'll be doing the presentation with the three of us, and again, feel free to show us your meeting notes and let's engage. So what's on the horizon? Well, if we look at the future as a business, it is very important to look ahead, to really see what's coming on and to stay and look outside of your business and not just focus on sales and internal operations. Horizon scanning and the STEEP methodology are two concepts that really encourage you to look outside the business, to look for opportunities, to adjust your strategy, but also to assess potential changes in the world around you that may impact your business on the short, medium, or long term. And if you think of it as looking at the horizon, if something's very near or close to you, then that's where you're currently taking action. That's in your current horizon, horizon one. Things that you can see emerging from the future are a little bit further. They're medium-term changes that you are already aware of and that are important for strategic consideration. That's what we'll be focusing on today. And then there's the longer-term trends, things that you might be aware of that you slowly have to start planning, but that are not really happening in the near future. For example, the 2030 agenda for the Sustainable Development Goals. That's in the year 2030, or the net zero economy 2050. It's a long term away, but big businesses are already making changes today. We encourage you to use the STEEP methodology, which stands for social, technological, economical, environmental, and political trends. And I'll give you some examples before we dive into it. Social, think about trends like gender discrimination or gender inequality. What does it do to my business, and is it something that I should be thinking about? New technologies, look at AI. How does that impact your business, and which changes do you have to make? Is it a short-term threat, or is it an opportunity that you have to explore? Look at the economical world around you. How do the cost of living crisis impact your business? And what do you have to do in order to adjust for that, to change your strategy? Now, each of these categories really help you look at those external factors and decide whether you have to prepare for it to make your business future proof. So I really urge you to take a weekly moment to just write down what you see in the online media, what you hear when you talk to people in the cafes, but also in business meetings. Ask people around you what they see so that you can form an informed opinion about the future. And I guess this is a good moment to ask Andrew, if we look at the environment, if we look at these trends and we're scanning the horizon, Andrew, what are the environmental factors like climate change and environmental regulations, changing in consumer demand that really affects business? What do you see happening from a Southern Cross point of view as a expert in the field?
Thanks very much, Willem, and thanks for the question. I think there's a real paradigm shift going on at the moment. So I think there's a particular shift towards this notion of a circular economy. And while that's very much related to sustainability, and sustainability and circular economy go together hand in glove, I think one of the really significant elements of this shift towards a circular economy is the relationship between business and sustainability. So I think sustainability has traditionally been seen as more of an environmental issue, and therefore something that maybe has traditionally been external to business. And so business have had to try to somehow internalize this and make sense of it. Whereas I think circular economy at its heart, it's about business. And so it's almost flipping things on its head in that it's a paradigm that fundamentally makes sustainability a part of how we do business. And I think this is a really critical paradigm shift that's going to influence businesses of all sizes over the coming years. And just to expand a little bit further on what I mean by that, for those that may not be so familiar with the concept of a circular economy, there are three basic principles that sit beneath this idea of a circular economy. The first is that we need to eliminate waste and pollution. The second is that we try to keep products and materials in circulation for as long as possible at their highest value. And the third is that we try to regenerate nature and society. And the thing about this is that while clearly these principles align to sustainability, also efficient resource use and resilience are critical elements of success in business. And so these two things are deeply intertwined. And then one final element that I just want to highlight in relation to this emerging paradigm or paradigm shift is that I think it really connects individual businesses much more strongly within the network of their supply chain. Because at its heart, circular economy is about how materials flow through society and flow through the economy. And so to have this holistic awareness of that requires you to engage very strongly with both your suppliers to understand where their materials and their products are coming from, and also your clients. And why I think this is important is because, as I know we're going to talk about in a little while, Willem, there are regulatory changes on the horizon that will impact big business, but those changes are going to filter down through the supply chain and through the economy, and they're going to impact small to medium enterprises and, in fact, all businesses as part of this shift towards a circular economy.
And I think it's really good to look at that global perspective as well, Andrew, as we know that sustainability is not just an Australian topic, it's a global topic. If you look at the Sustainable Development Goals, Australia is currently listed I think 39th on the, or 38th on the global ranking. So we're doing quite well. But those global rankings are led by mostly Northern European countries like Finland and Germany. So big economies that are really shifting towards that circular economy. The Netherlands, in fact, has the circular economy as an ambition for 2050. So they're really signed on. If we look at the industry here in Australia, Ernest, what do you see happening when you talk to businesses in the region that are embarking on this journey?
Well, thanks. Yes, from that perspective, what you can see is just looking today, people coming through the lunch hour to attend a meeting like this. The industry is becoming more aware about it. I think they realize it is something needed. It's not something nice to have. They actually need this to have a social license to operate. So people are coming to us for information, they're coming to us for help, they ask us what can we do, how can we help them to do it. The public is also coming, and the consumer is also becoming more aware or alert to these sort of things. You can't get away with this so-called greenwashing anymore. People want to see tangible, measurable results that you can actually put to your claim. So companies can't get away just putting the little icons on the screen anymore, but they actually need to have the data to prove it and support it. And that's where the ReCirculator and the initiatives like ours comes in, where people actually come and ask for measures, ask for implementation, and actually ask for data to be interpreted.
So I'm very keen to know what our guests think and see when they look around them. So please share in the chat what you see happening, and maybe if you raise your hand, I'm more than happy to welcome you in the webinar with us to share your thoughts on what you see happening. So what trends can you see? And I'm looking at the chat to see what answers are coming in. If you look at social, technological, economical, environmental, and political trends, what is affecting your business? What is the answer when you look at what's happening in the world around you? So is there someone who wants to join and share what they see? I can't see any raised hands yet. Don't be shy. We will not bite. Please come in. And you can always come in later if you feel comfortable. Looking at the political and regulatory questions, and sorry, not questions, but trends. Andrew, you were already mentioning that there's something on the horizon here, and that not only are we trying to develop that circular economy, but we're also, as a business, but also as businesses in general, trying to implement circularity as a way of building that circular economy. Could you please touch on a little bit what the difference is between the circular economy as a whole and how businesses can act on it? How can they become a circular business?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think it comes back to that point that I touched on earlier about the interconnectedness between all of the different players in a given economy, which we might think of as the supply chain or network of supply chains. So I guess the totality of that and the totality of how materials flow through that economy is what we might consider to be the circular economy. What we mean by circular in this sense, I guess, to elaborate on those principles that I mentioned before, in practice, what this means that instead of digging things up, chopping them down, creating something that is used for maybe a few weeks, maybe a few months, and then in Australia at least generally ends up in a hole in the ground. It means that once these materials enter this supply chain network, they keep moving around within that supply chain network at the highest value. So obviously that implies that every player in that network is really part of a broader ecosystem. And so that's what we mean by the circular economy. And so obviously it's nice to look at that from that bigger perspective and to measure what we call circularity. So, how long-lived these materials are and what the environmental footprint is. But from the perspective of an individual business, this is where we talk about the notion of, I guess, circular practices. And that's the contribution that an individual business or organization or consumer makes to that overall economy. And so while obviously there are policy measures that we can take and things at sort of a government level that can help us move towards a circular economy, ultimately the economy is the sum of the activity of all those individual players. And that's where, as a business, you can start looking at particular practices, circular practices that you can implement that will both contribute to the achievement of an overall circular economy, but as we've already discussed, Willem, will also contribute to your success as a business.
So it's good to see that some people are putting in their observations from the outside world. I can see Adriana mentioning that there's an interest, a growing interest in diversity and equity and inclusion in Australia, looking at people with disabilities, women in leadership. Would you like to respond to that, Adriana, very briefly? Feel free to join.
Yes, thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes. So I came from a Latin America background where this topic have been discussed for a long time now. I've been living in Australia for 2 years now, and I see it's still slow. We should rush this discussion because it's the real need. But I think, yes, and the regulatory is really, from the government, is really helping the companies to look at this. I think when you look at the 2030 with the Olympics, right? 2032, I can remember the year. But this is going to push a little bit the discussion for all the companies to look at this as well.
Thank you, Adriana. I'll be touching on the other people that have put something in the chat later on. But before we do that, I think there's a big regulatory change, a political change that's coming in. And of course, that's something that we all see coming. And that's partly what we wanted to share with you today, that it is the mandatory climate-related financial reporting. It is a mouthful that is coming in next year. But we also promised that you should not worry too much. We know that it is the New South Wales Small Business Month, and as you can see, the initial regulations impact larger businesses in the next 2 years. By January 1st, 2025, only businesses with either 500 million or more in revenue or $1 billion more in assets or 500 employees or more will have to start reporting, followed by the group that has 200 million in revenue, 500 million or more in assets, or 250 more in staff. And then lastly, in 2027, July 2027, businesses with 50 million or more in revenue, a consolidated gross assets of 25 million more, or 100 and more people in staff. The last group only when they have real material impacts that have a climate-related impact. So that is pretty far away. In total, that'll be roughly less than 5,000 businesses in Australia, 0.2% of the economy. And the total economy is another 2.6 million businesses in Australia that are almost all within the definition of a small business. But don't let that fool you. Don't let it fool you, because when large businesses have to start reporting, as Andrew mentioned, it will start to impact on supply chains, as the majority of businesses that you're operating is working with smaller businesses in their supply chain. So they will slowly be starting to ask questions about your sustainability efforts and what you are doing with your business. And that's why it becomes very important to look at your own sustainability maturity journey and to understand your own sustainability maturity level. What do you know, and are you aware of sustainability? And if you have a question on the climate related topics, please just raise your hand, put it in the chat, and we'll get to that in the chat, or we'll answer it later. So finding your own maturity level, because that's the key, and then making sure that you identify what is relevant to you and how you can start to build that strategy. And what we like to do today is just use this 5-step ladder to guide you through what's happening. And as Ariadna just said, the majority of businesses seems to be at the beginning of the ladder. So if you haven't started today, that's not a problem. And the second thing that we've learned with SDG Align, with thousands of people taking this assessment, we also learned that most businesses are already doing something. However, they're not aware of it. They don't label it as a sustainability action yet. So looking at the 5 levels, first of all, you can be completely unaware. And then once you start to climb the ladder and you become aware, you become an initiator. You are relatively new to sustainability. There's no real clear strategy yet, but you're doing some efforts, and that's great. And we can help you identify that. Second ladder in yellow will be explorer. You're aware of your sustainability issues, and you've begun to do some small initiatives and small actions. Next up is becoming an implementer. Your practices are now starting to align more with sustainability, and it is becoming part of your standards of practice and your operations. So you're really doing something. Next up is the innovator level, and that's also where Andrew and Ernest are really playing, supporting businesses in the region to become those innovators in sustainability, and really making it part of a company's processes and culture. And finally, at the top of the ladder is becoming that advocate, that sustainability leader that can be identified, for example, by the logo of a B Corp. Australia has roughly 800 B Corps. And on the total of 2.6 million, it is a small group, but here in the Northern Rivers, for example, it's a very large group, and I can say, please engage with them, engage with businesses with that brand, because they're onto it. But you can also become a member of UN Global Compact Australia. So it's all about building capabilities, and it is about making sure that you're taking the steps on the ladder to build that value in your business with sustainability, and to close that strategic gap. So the more you know, the more it becomes part of that gap, the better it is. We will look at step 1. So we've promised you a free self-assessment. Here it is. Basically, scan the QR code, and I will put the link in the chat as well, so that you can click on it and take that with you as a quick assessment. The toolkit really helps you to understand where you are at a very basic level. So on that first 2 steps, and what your typical priorities are. So the key focus there is to identify where you're doing well, and maybe you weren't aware of it, to identify which business practices need attention, or you can turn them into an opportunity, and then further progress your journey by taking those actions. So find out what matters to you is a good starting point. Any questions, please put them in the chat. We'll get to that. Second step and third step are to commit and take action. Once you've identified that sustainability in the broader sense of the word is something that you want to take action on, then of course it is important to start to relate that to the known concepts and frameworks. Concepts like circularity, things you can do, and frameworks like sustainable development goals, and of course the upcoming financial climate related financial disclosures. And there are standards for that. We will not dive into the standards today. We will just make sure that you're aware of it and that you start to commit. That you start with gathering foundational data so you know where you are, and that you're starting to set clear and smart sustainability goals. If you've done that, it makes you an explorer, right? Because you're on the journey. It makes you someone who's exploring it. You might be talking to your employees already, but you're on the journey, and that's good. Please, hands up for those that are already on the journey. Just give me some thumbs up. Who thinks that you're an explorer already? Yeah, Veronica is an explorer. Just looking around, I can see a couple of people being explorers. That's cool. Martin being explorer, and definitely Tanya being explorer. Tanya, maybe you can share very briefly what you do and what makes you an explorer on sustainability. Unmute.
Yeah, thank you. Hi. I'm at Narara Eco Village, which is on the central coast of New South Wales near Gosford, and it's an intentional community that has as an aim to live socially, economically and environmentally within the planet's boundaries. And we have been plotting our impact because there is a global impact assessment survey. So there was an awareness of how we were tracking both to the map of regeneration, because eco-villages are kind of gone, well, we're beyond sustainability, we've got to get to regenerating, and that maps to the SDGs. So there was some level of awareness, but when we did the SDG align process that we're looking at here, it helped, because the languaging and the framework was slightly different to the other one that we'd done. It helped to better understand and confirm that we were well on track. And actually, it was really exciting because we've subsequently made an application for the Banksia Awards and become a finalist in the placemaking category. And so it's like an audit of anything, you know, when you're trying to lose weight or get fit, you know, what's my baseline? Where do I start from? Or how's my garden looking? Oh, crap, the soil's not really good. Sorry about my language. You know, how do we start to know where we are today in order to where we reach to? And that feels really appropriate with the Sustainable Development Goals. You know, let's have a little bit of awareness around them and continue to raise awareness and to build a tribe of people that are engaged in the same process, understanding that, you know, that connection from the larger companies or organisations and institutions, and that we are all intertwinkled or interconnected. We are one large ecosystem. And equally, how do we do that at a local level? I think that's a really important thing.
Very important. Thank you, Tanya, for sharing. Can you turn your mic off? We have the done. And then once you're the explorer, once you've identified, it is up the next step on the ladder, really becoming an implementer. Start with actioning circularity. Start with reducing your energy and eliminating waste, as Andrew said. Focus on the health of your staff and well-being of them. Take actions in your local community. Work with schools, work with local small businesses. And very importantly, keep track of your impact. you can only manage what you measure. So it is very important that once you're on the journey, that you start to measure your impact so that you can use that in your reporting moving forward. And basically, this is now becoming something more serious. So we're at level 3 now, implementer. You're monitoring, you're doing things, you're on the job. But then it really comes down to implementing things and becoming an innovator. And that's where it can become tricky, because you might be changing business models. You might be looking for processes, research and development. You want to explore things. You might be thinking of grants that the government or the local government is providing to make it more sustainable, and to really innovate. And that's where Southern Cross and the ReCirculator come in to really help you find out how to do that and to become an innovator. Andrew, maybe a little bit more about ReCirculator. Can you enlighten us?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. So the Regional Circular Economy Accelerator Project, or ReCirculator, is a project that we've been running here at Southern Cross University now for nearly 3 years, and it came about because, like I'd imagine everybody in this webinar, we were keen to do what we could to help this transition towards a more circular economy. And for myself as an academic, my mind immediately goes to what new things can we invent and what research can we do. But when we started looking, we found that there's already a lot of stuff that's out there. There are lots of solutions, both technical or technological solutions, but also, novel business models. There's all sorts of stuff. And so the next question is, why is this not being taken up? And we came to the view that it's because there are all of these systematic barriers to the adoption of solutions that might enable businesses, individuals, other organizations to start or to really progress that journey and start doing innovative things. And so this is where we realized that we could play a slightly different role. And that role was to help remove those barriers. So these might be regulatory barriers. And, as an example, with certain technologies, it's very difficult to implement them unless you have data to show that they're effective. For example, to address in New South Wales EPA regulations is one example. Or there might be other barriers associated with the risk from a business perspective. It could be risky to put a whole lot of money into something where you're not sure that it's going to work. And so this is where, as a university, we can use the facilities and the expertise that we have access to try to address some of these barriers so that we can pilot different solutions. We can try out, existing ideas in new scenarios, or we can help people to try to optimize solutions such that they become viable from a not just a technical point of view, but from a regulatory perspective, an economic perspective, and so on. And so really that's at the heart of our ReCirculator project. As the slide there says, it's a knowledge brokerage that tries to make connections between businesses who maybe have problems that they need solved and other businesses or organizations who maybe have solutions that they're having trouble getting implemented. And we try to make those connections. We try to share knowledge, but also to try to remove those barriers. So essentially that's what we do, Willem, and we've been working with a range of different industries and businesses here in the New South Wales Northern Rivers to try to implement that idea of acting as that knowledge brokerage and research agent who can make these things viable.
Before we dive into what it actually means and some examples of projects that you've been running, what are the partnerships and what kind of business and industry partnerships are you currently running with? Because I think if you look at the ecosystem around ReCirculator and Southern Cross, it might not be known, to everybody in the call, what that looks like.
Yeah, of course. So my background is engineering, environmental engineering to be precise. And so a lot of our focus and during the initial stages of our ReCirculator project was very much on technology, particularly engineering technology. As an example of that, I saw that Russ Martin put a comment in the chat before about biochar. So pyrolysis and thermal treatment of organic wastes are something really interesting that we've been working on. We've also been looking at technology to try to address problems associated with plastic waste. Is there something that we can do other than just throw them in a hole in the ground? At least as a starting point. In the longer term, maybe we want to phase out plastics altogether, but at least in the short term, can we keep them in circulation at a higher value use than what we're doing at the moment? So we're working with a range of different industry partners, and I know Ernest is going to talk about some examples of that, but they're not necessarily industry partners just from the Northern Rivers region. So some of them are global partners, and also we work with colleagues at other universities as well. But maybe just one final comment, Willem, before I hand back, which is that increasingly as our program has evolved, so is our understanding of the nature of the problem. And we realise increasingly that technology is great for some problems, but it's actually not the solution to a lot of the other issues that are facing businesses and industry. And so we're increasingly doing work looking at novel business models, for example, that can help to try to progress the move to the circular economy. And we've got a really exciting project which is going to be starting up in the next few months about looking at how we can use artificial intelligence to try to build a digital or smart circular economy. And this is really about that question of data, which you emphasised earlier, the importance of measuring. If we don't measure, then it's very difficult to know whether or not we're going in the right direction. So we have a vision, I guess, of being able to track all of the ways that materials flow through our economy here in the New South Wales Northern Rivers. And then we can look and we can say, well, look, there's easy wins that we can have here. We can see that there's a particular material that's really not staying in circulation for very long, very low circularity, if I can put it that way. And maybe that's an easy problem to fix. Maybe it's as simple as saying, business A, you need to talk to business B over here. What you're sending out as a waste to landfill, this person over here is buying by, I don't know, buying a product that's dug out of the ground, for example. So that's a big, exciting project that we're working on at the moment. But I guess in summary, there's some examples of the types of problems and industries that we're working with, but the big picture is we'd like to work with anyone who has problems or solutions that we can help try to make those connections.
Please share in the chat, Andrew, the link to your AI project if available, or maybe just contact you for more information. But yeah, that's a very good one to mention, that it's not just about waste streams. It's also about technology, and moreover, it's also about people, because at the end of the day, the economy is with people, and it's about finding the connections with the right people in your ecosystem or in your network to build those relevant relationships and find collaborative projects. Southern Cross works with the Northern Rivers Living Lab, for example, in Lismore, in the area of resilient housing. And there are some circular economy projects related to that after the floods, to see how we can reuse the wood, the hardwood from the houses that got flooded, in the circular economy. So there's interesting aspects there as well, and there's plenty of more initiatives in the region. Now I think it's time, Ernest, to look at a more detailed overview of the projects that you're running with the ReCirculator. You've listed 6. Please tell me a little bit more.
Yes, Willem. So as Andrew said, we established initially this ReCirculator to build competency and also to introduce the concept to the industry. So our projects were selected to align with the region's demand and our own skill sets, and we can also expand on that. So we chose these 6 projects. I'm not going to read everything for you, but basically our first project dealt with thermal treatment of waste, and specifically plastic. You can see a picture there of a small modular pyrolysis unit from our partner Plastic Spirit. The intent was to take this unit basically to the source. So you take it to the farm or you put it on a ship, and that's why it's Plastic Spirit, and you consume the plastic where it's generated. You can make fuel from it, or you can make the feeding stock for new plastics or monomer. Our second project, we looked at how can you contribute to the construction industry. I'll discuss that one on a separate slide. Our third one, we looked at capturing nutrients from waste streams, such as the dairy industry. I mean, Northern Rivers is a big dairy industry, so that's one of those partners. Fourth project is more about competency building, carbon accounting, life cycle assessment. Those are tools and stuff people need to be able to report and assess their progress. Project 5 is about waste identification and sorting. That project now evolved into what Andrew already mentioned, the AI initiative. So a lot of this is going into a second phase of Circular 2, which is basically what next, and well can advance what to learn from that. If I look specifically at Project 2, that was the one I mentioned. We looked at put it into the construction industry. So specifically, we worked with a partner called CRDC Global, and they have a technology which they call Resin 8. So Resin 8 is an aggregate replacement for concrete applications, where you use hard to recycle plastics, you add some minerals, and you end up with a product after you put it through a heat treatment, looking like that middle picture. And when you granulate it and you get this aggregate, you can put into a concrete application. We have put on a pilot facility on campus where we basically can demonstrate the whole process from sorting, the shredding, the manufacturing, and finally testing it in the final application. We're actually in the process of pouring a slab about 50 square meters at our ReCirculator facility using plastic which we recycle from the campus and put through this process. Since the project started, our partner also opened up a commercial facility in Melbourne, from where he's currently supporting a number of big projects within that region. Maybe let's move to the next one. So the last project is about plastics into a novel application, and yes, we looked at using it in 3D printing. So we have a partner there which is also based in the Northern Rivers, StereoKite. StereoKite has been in the business of making props for movies and stage and stuff like that. So they had this new technology, or not new technology, but a novel 3D printer which they designed and built, which is about 2 stories high. You can see a bit of a glimpse of it on the left-hand top picture. And they said, well, we have this facility, why can't we do for something different? And they looked at starting to print houses. So we got involved in this project and supporting them through finance as well as mechanical testing of the structures, identifying the suitable plastics. And we've demonstrated this project by building that small unit, which you see on the top line of the pictures, which we call our little shed. And that shed is based on their commercial unit, which is on the bottom picture. That little shed took about 9,000 recycled 2-liter plastic milk bottles, and we were able to move this around to different locations and show people what this can be. In the end, this partner will build these little, what we call the Gingy houses, and that will come in a studio, 1-bedroom, 2-bedroom units. And as we speak now, we've already started to take orders for these units to roll that out.
Wow.
So if any of these projects are interested to you and you want to discuss more, please link up with me and we can have a call and give you more details.
Now, these are real examples of how businesses that were doing something moved and shifted to circular principles and circular economy. That takes time and investment, and that's where the partnerships and the collaboration with ReCirculator and Southern Cross really can be something to consider, to become that innovator in sustainability and to make it next level. And as we said, if we look at the horizon, this is the time to do it, because we can almost foresee the demand in these kind of sustainable products coming up. I'm keen to know if you can disclose that. What would be the price of such a unit, Ernest? Is it affordable housing straight away?
I would think it's affordable in today's market. I don't want to speak on the partner's behalf, but we're talking probably 100 to 200 sort of thousand ranges rather than your bigger houses, you know. So
Yeah.
it is still a small modular unit, and it's comparable with other modular units.
Yeah, it's not a tiny house price yet, but
Yeah.
it's getting there. Cool. Thank you for sharing. And maybe this is also a moment to ask the audience whether there are any initiatives that they've undertaken in sustainability or that they've heard of that are really at that innovation level. Or maybe you want to pitch your idea and get in touch with the team at Southern Cross. So feel free, raise your hand, let us know, or share it in the chat. I can see someone, Miria, opening the mic. Miriam? Miria, you want to say something? No? All right. Then no questions at this stage. That's fine. We'll be sharing the slides as part of the follow-up, so you have plenty of time to explore this further. If you look at these initiatives, then obviously that's making your business an innovator, and knowledge can help to explore that knowledge that might not be widely available because it's very new. Building partnerships to become that sustainability leader is a crucial thing. And that's why we've put the UN Global Compact and B Corp at the end of this journey. Because once you've really set out on your journey, you're implementing sustainable practices, you're making it part of your business operations, you're building these partnerships, you're reporting the impact that you make, then it becomes more and more easy to grow that impact by collaborating, because no one can do that alone. We can't solve the sustainable development goals by themselves. They're wicked problems as they are. It means that we need people, we need business, and we need the government in order to solve this. Becoming that leader means more effort, because once you want to get a certificate like B Corp, you really have to put in a fair bit of effort to get there, and that's fine because I think it is a rewarding thing to do. And make sure to share your stories as well and inspire others when you do this. Now, let's look at some key takeaways of what we've discussed today in order to help you make sustainable practices into a business habit and taking the full advantage of what's coming your way in the very near future. So use STEEP and continuously assess where you are on the journey. This will help you to look at the horizon, to translate what you see happening around you into your business strategy, and move up the sustainability maturity ladder. Sustainability is not a sprint; it's a marathon journey. So take your time. These first two steps, initiator to explorer, can easily take you a year, and that's okay. It takes time to engage staff and stakeholders. New regulations drive supply chain engagement, and you need to get your data in order for your stakeholders. Prepare, develop your plan, and be ready. That's basically what we're saying. It's a global opportunity, the circular economy, of more than 4.5 trillion. So be prepared to take advantage of that and build that partnership with Southern Cross and others to get your ducks lined up and invest in those regional partnerships to make sure that your business is future-proof. Now, to help you future-proof a little bit more, we've got that link to the self-assessment, but we've also developed a little AI bot, a virtual assistant that you can play with in order to get your first understanding of sustainability. Sorry, I was a bit quick there. And that will help you build your plan. It will help you assess where you are on the levels and guide you through the first steps. So then again, artificial intelligence can help you. Have a go, scan the QR code. We will share the links later. And if you want to contact the team, we will share our contact details later on. I would like to open the floor for questions before wrapping the webinar up. and see whether any of you in the audience want to say something or reflect on what we've been doing. Please raise your hands or just open your mic if you want to comment. Yeah, Lisa.
Hello, thank you for today. What's really piquing my interest at the moment is the push on the development industry for emissions reporting. So you find a lot of people may buy a block of land with a single house and want to demolish it and put up 3 homes. And so therefore you get the loss of the value of what was actually built when you could have perhaps renovated that into 3 homes. But now the industry is starting to look at emissions when you do developments and use, so that now developers, mum and dad developers, people that remove things have to start reporting on what they're removing and what they're getting rid of, and that actually might end up being cost prohibitive to actually developing what they want to do. So I'm starting to really read into that and really immerse myself in that. Tasmania, where I'm at the moment, the government's really starting to push that on their climate and emissions plan. So I'm just wondering, with the Northern Rivers and the loss in the floods and whatnot, so you had loss, and you've had to rebuild. Has emissions started to come across the table? And so people are looking at the recirculation, like you spoke about the hardwood floorboards, into reusables, etc.
I'll stop the presentation here. Andrew, is that something that you can talk to? I can talk to it in general, and I've got some more knowledge about Tasmania as well, because SDG Align is partly based in Tassie. So, but Andrew, maybe on the local knowledge.
Yeah. Look, I'll just be honest. It's been a bit disappointing, Lisa. There was a really big opportunity to do exactly that, to use this almost as a demonstration of how we could build circular economy principles into, for example, procurement, tendering, and so on, as part of the requirements there. And although that hasn't happened, unfortunately, and I think the reality is that it would take some work to do, and there's these, at the same time as there's an opportunity to do things differently and do things better, there is also just the reality on the ground of people who don't have anywhere to live, and they just need to get these old houses removed and, you know, new houses built and all the rest of it. So yeah, like, for me, the word that sums it up is disappointing. And I guess the other thing that comes to mind is missed opportunity. I don't want to sound too negative, because I appreciate that the reality is that, you know, you've got a lot of people who that's not their top priority. Their top priority at the moment is just to be able to live somewhere safely. But I think it makes a broader point. You know, I think it speaks to the bigger challenge with a lot of these initiatives in general, which is, it sounds like a great idea, but somehow we have to make it work within the existing constraints within the system. For what it's worth, I think procurement is a great place to start with a lot of this. Yeah.
And sustainable procurement is becoming part of the government policies, I think federal, because of the new circular economy